Starting off this countdown, we have Finding Nothing. And by this, I'm referring to the Disney Pixar movie Finding Nemo. Theory goes that Nemo is actually dead. Sadly, he didn't survive the attack at the beginning of the film that killed his mother and siblings. The whole movie is actually about a father trying to come to terms with the death of his wife and kids. As a result, Nemo is a figment of his imagination. Now, all the pals that we see along the way are all trying to help Marlin cope with his grief, whereas Dory is said to be his psychiatrist helping him along his journey to acceptance. In fact, the movie shows the 5 stages of grief. First, we have denial, which we can see by Marlin always babying Nemo and not wanting him to go to school. Then we have anger, which was when he got mad at Nemo for swimming out too far. We got bargaining, which was his entire journey across the ocean. Depression, which was when he almost reached Nemo and then he saw him getting flushed down the toilet. And then finally, acceptance, coming to terms with the loss of him. In fact, Nemo in Latin means nobody or nothing. So the name literally translates to finding nobody. In our 9th spot, we have the secret villain. According to this next theory, the real villain of Toy Story 2 is none other than Wheezy the Penguin. Yeah, that's right. In the movie, Woody finds Wheezy all dusty and alone on Andy's bookshelf. For years, he had been severely neglected by Andy, all because he has a broken squeaker. As a result, he became very jealous of all the other toys that Andy loved to play with, especially Woody. Therefore, Wheezy decided to include himself in the yard sale, knowing that Woody would try and come to his rescue and hopefully be sold in the process. It was his scheme all along to try to get rid of his competition and become Andy's #1 favorite toy. Moving on to number 8, we have the pathological liar. Who am I referring to? Cinderella, of course. The story of Cinderella is told from her perspective, but others claim that her stepmother and sisters aren't as sinister as she makes them out to be. In fact, this theory takes a look at it from their perspective. So Cinderella was a young girl from a wealthy family. She was very privileged and never had to do any chores. When her stepmother came into her life, she was trying to teach Cinderella that she can't ride on her privilege and her family's wealth. So she gets her to start helping around the house by doing household chores. But since Cinderella has never done any chores in her entire life, she feels like she's being punished. And she makes everything more dramatic than it actually is. So she acts like she's doing really cruel chores. Then her sisters seem evil since they are living in a house that's rightfully hers. So the whole movie is about Cinderella overreacting to every little thing, simply because she has a poor work ethic. In our 7th spot, we have the evil nanny. Mary Poppins may be a little stern at times, but she only has the best intentions, right? Or does she? According to this theory, Mary Poppins is the master at manipulation. She may seem practically perfect, but in reality, she is a cruel demigod that is trying to gain control of the entire human race. I mean, she definitely has superhuman capabilities, like, hello, her endless bag of stuff, or the fact that she can fly with an umbrella. Now, her plan begins by infiltrating families and getting them to conform to her ways. All the families end up blindly following her ways. We see that she has mass admirers and devoted followers. She is slowly but surely taking control over families so that they will always do what she says, and she can end up ruling the world with a loyal following. In our 6th spot, we have Up to Heaven. The Disney Pixar movie Up has one of the saddest beginnings in Disney movie history. It's a real tearjerker. The only thing worse than that might be this theory. So according to this theory, Carl died in his sleep shortly after his wife passed away. The adventure he goes on through the movie is his journey to the afterlife. I mean, he literally is in his balloon house floating up to the sky, aka towards heaven. Russell is his guardian angel trying to make sure that he gets to heaven unharmed. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with The Purge. This one has got to be one of my personal favorites, just because of how outrageous and hilarious it is. So we all know the movie High School Musical. I mean, it's a movie that defined my childhood. To this day, I still have every single song memorized. And yes, I brag about that, okay? Those songs are everything. Anyway, this theory suggests that High School Musical and The Purge exist in the same universe. I know, but how else can you explain how the students get away with trashing the cafeteria, or how Lava Springs in the second movie didn't get shut down, or how Miss Darbus got away with forgery by applying to Juilliard on behalf of Troy? Seriously, none of their actions have consequences. You know where else you can get away with anything? on the purge night once a year. Just saying, just saying. Making our way down the list at number 4, we have the hallucinations. Let's move on and take a look at Alice in Wonderland, shall we? Whether we look at the book or the Disney movie adaptation, it seems like the theme of drug use is always apparent. This theory states that Alice is a drug addict that would go on crazy trips. In fact, it is said that the author Lewis Carroll was an opium user. It was rumored that he was on drugs while writing this book. So in the Disney movie, we have the caterpillar that is constantly taking hits from his pipe. We have Alice who drinks potions and eats mushrooms and other edibles that have different effects on her body, quite literally, and the whole movie is filled with crazy characters and events. So the White Rabbit is the alias that her drug dealer goes by. He says, "I'm late for an important date," meaning he's gotta be on time for all these drug exchanges. The theme of madness present throughout the film highlights how dangerous the effects of drugs can have on you and how it can cause you to spiral into madness. In our third spot, we have The Gruesome Murder. The Emperor's New Groove was actually a really good movie. Like, it deserves more attention. Like, Yzma and Kronk are an iconic duo. Now this theory shows how evil Yzma actually is. In fact, it's thought that Cusco isn't the first human Yzma has turned into a creature. So in one of the scenes, Cusco ends up wandering into a scary looking jungle. While doing so, he witnesses a fly trapped in a spider web. The fly says, "Help me," right before being viciously eaten by a spider. Well, isn't it quite weird that the fly had the ability to talk? I mean, Cusco interacts with several other animals in the movie and none of them can talk, except this fly. So this has led people to believe that that fly was actually a human that Yzma then turned into a fly, meaning that that scene is much darker than we realized. It's the human's last moments of life. In our second spot, we have the deathbed. According to this next theory, Snow White may not have had a happy ever after. So in the film, we see that Snow White is woken up by her true love's kiss. But in reality, the prince is the personification of death. Snow White was laying on her deathbed. The prince's kiss was actually a Dementor's kiss that sucked the last little bit of life out of her, meaning she actually ends up dying at the end of the film. She then wakes up and imagines her perfect ending, riding off with her prince. Notice how she rides off to a castle literally in the clouds? Hello, she's on her way to heaven. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Angel of Death. This theory revolves around the film Peter Pan, Peter being the Angel of Death. Theory goes that Peter comes and takes the souls of dying children. He then takes their hand and guides them to heaven, aka Neverland. Now, this explains why the Lost Boys and other kids in Neverland don't grow up. It's because they are already dead, which is pretty sad if you ask me. This also means that Wendy commits a murder-suicide by killing herself and her brothers since they all go to Neverland with Peter. Now, author of Peter Pan, J.M. Barrie, created this land for his brother that passed away at 13. So the theory about Neverland being for dead kids is kind of true. Starting off this countdown, we have the hallucinations. For this theory, let's take a look at the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Poor Quasimodo has one of the saddest stories out there. His mom was killed by Frollo when he was just a baby. Then Frollo took him and locked him away for years. He was also shunned and made fun of by the public because of his appearance. Now, theory goes that the 3 talking gargoyles that we see in the movie are all actually hallucinations. Quasimodo made them up in his head so that he would have some friends to talk to. I mean, being locked away for years with no human interaction besides one man would drive anyone insane. In our 9th spot, we have Snow Tangled. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up because it really helps us out. Some fans have pointed out that the evil queen from Snow White looks a lot like Mother Gothel from Tangled. So theory goes that she didn't die at the end of Snow White. I mean, we didn't see her dead body, meaning that she could have survived. She then went on to track down that magical flower to stay young forever. I mean, this kind of makes sense. I mean, both the Evil Queen and Mother Gothel are vain and obsessed with their appearance. Also, they both have 2 very similar looking daggers. Either they like to shop at the same sword place, or they are the same person. Dun dun dun! Coming in at number 8, we have Wally the Killer. Wally from Wall-E is such a cute, innocent robot, right? Well, wrong. He's not, and I'm here to tell you why. Theory goes that the reason why Wall-E is the only robot left on Earth is because he killed off all the other robots. Like, come on, how is it that out of everyone, he managed to survive? Not only that, this theory gets darker when it suggests that he used the parts of his dead robot friends to keep him alive. That is hella creepy. I can never look at Wall-E the same. You see those big eyes? Yeah, those are the eyes of a killer. Moving on to number 7, we have The Last of Rex. Here we have another theory involving the film Wall-E. So if you pay close attention, you can see that Rex from Toy Story makes a cameo in this film. In one scene, we see him in the background among Wall-E's collection of human junk. This seems like a fun little Easter egg. But if you really think about it, it's quite depressing. This means that Rex is all alone in a world that has been completely destroyed. All his friends are dead. He most likely witnessed all of them die in front of him. He is now alone, isolated, and unloved. And as we know from all the Toy Story movies, loneliness really gets to these sentient toys. It destroys them. Rex is probably so anxious and depressed now. And if we link this to the last theory, then he's being held captive by a crazy killer robot. Poor Rex. Someone needs to come to his rescue. In our 6th spot, we have the big metaphor. This one is absolutely crazy. This theory was presented by film critic Jordan Hoffman. So basically, he believes that Toy Story 3 is a metaphor for the Holocaust. I told you, it was a crazy one. So let's take a look at the facts to this theory. For starters, and I quote, "The toys spend a chunk of the film expressing hopes to hide away from the realities of the changing world in a dusty attic. Some have thought that this is a reference to Anne Frank hiding away in her attic. Then in the movie, the toys get sent to Sunnyside Daycare. People have made the connection that this is the movie's concentration camp. Lotso Huggin' Bear would be the dictator. The scariest thing of all, though, is towards the end of the film when the toys are almost burned alive in the incinerator. Again, another dark connection to the violent deaths many Jewish people sadly met. Obviously, this was not Disney's intention, but I can no longer look at this movie the same. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with The Monster. I think we can all agree that Bing Bong's death in Inside Out was extremely sad. It had adults all over the world weeping. So theory goes that Bing Bong was actually a scare monster from Monsters, Inc. Riley was a child that he visited when she was younger, just like how Sully visited Boo. If this is true, then it means that Bing Bong in the film was just a memory from her childhood. So in the end, he really didn't die, but just the memory of him did. Most likely, this is because she's growing up. I mean, this theory makes everything a little less sad, but still, it's so dark. Coming in at number 4, we have the Evil Corporation. In Wall-E, we see that Earth is no longer fit for humans. It's completely polluted and destroyed. Well, fans began to question how this came to be in the first place. Sure, humans are to blame, but this theory suggests that something more sinister is going on. Theory goes that the corporation, by and large, are to blame for this. In the movie, this is the space program that takes all the humans to space. According to the theory, the by and large corporation purposely destroyed Earth so that they can become a mega corporation and have the power to control all humans forever. In our 3rd spot, we have The Little Mermaid. So theory goes that each of King Triton's daughters represent one of the 7 seas, and he has 7 daughters. How fitting. So Ariel's hair is red, so she represents the Red Sea. Alana has black hair, so she represents the Black Sea. Adela is the Mediterranean Sea, since she has a romantic personality, so on and so on. It's a pretty cool theory, but it gets twisted when someone pointed out that Ariel's mother represents the Dead Sea. Too far. They went too far with that one. In our 2nd spot, we have the Psycho. For this one, let's take a look at Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Sure, Snow White and her prince lived happily ever after, but she legit married a psycho. Let me explain. For this theory, let's take a look at the original version of Snow White called Snowdrop. In this version, Snowdrop chokes on a piece of the evil queen's apple and dies. The dwarfs then place her in a glass coffin. Then the prince sees her body in the coffin and asks the dwarves if he can have her corpse. Yeah, what is that all about? The dwarves obviously say no because that is super weird and whack. So he just steals her body instead. Not to worry guys though, as he's stealing her body, the apple dislodges from her throat and she wakes up. But you can only imagine what he would have done to her dead body. And in our number 1 spot, we have Dopey and Geppetto. Someone has come up with a theory that Dopey from Snow White and Geppetto from Pinocchio are the same person. Obviously, Geppetto is Dopey all grown up. So theory goes that there were only ever 6 dwarves. One day they found a young child alone in the woods and thought he was a dwarf. So they brought him in. This is also why Dopey is so dopey. He's just a young child and doesn't know any better. Sadly, Dopey was raised in an abusive household, and his parents left him out in the woods, completely abandoned. Sadly, life wasn't easy for Dopey. Soon, the dwarves abandoned him after he started to grow. Years later, he built his own home in Italy. Where do you think he learned how to build? The dwarves, of course. Now, if you pay close attention, Geppetto has some pretty interesting clocks that he has made. All are based off of his childhood trauma. One clock we see a mother smacking her child. The next we see a drunk man. And in another we see a turkey almost get decapitated. Meaning, as a child, his father was a drunk, his mother beat him, and the turkey symbolizes the number of times he almost got killed. Poor Geppetto. Starting off this countdown, we have Chip. Obviously, Chip from Beauty and the Beast got his name from the chip we see on his teacup. But the reason why he is chipped may be darker than we realized. For this, let's take a look at the movie Alice in Wonderland. If you noticed, at the tea party scene, their tea china has the same pattern as Miss Potts. So what if that is Mrs. Potts and Chip? On top of that, what if Chip got chipped when the Mad Hatter tried to saw a cup of tea in half for half a cup of tea? Meaning, he tried to literally cut a real boy in half. Ouch, that must have really hurt. But also, if this is the case, then it's incredibly dark and twisted. In our 9th spot, we have Tinkerbell. And if you guys are liking this video so far and want to see more videos like this, then make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. So, Tinkerbell is a darker character than we all realized. At the end of the movie Peter Pan, she literally tries to get Wendy killed. We see this dark side of her that we never knew about. But in the Tinkerbell movies, she seems like such a cheerful and kind-hearted fairy. So, what gives? Well, theory goes that one day the entire fairy population was wiped out, except for Tink. She then was living alone until she found Peter. No wonder she's so attached to him, she's all she has left. All her friends and family were wiped out. It gets darker when people suggested that Peter Pan is actually mind-controlling Tink. He has brainwashed her and the Lost Boys. Now she's his servant for eternity. All I know is that I get really bad vibes from her. Coming in at number 8, we have the real villain. You know who the villain of the Toy Story movies really is? No, it's not Stinky Pete. It's Andy's mom. Yeah, she's the true villain. If you think about it, she's the one that causes all the problems. In the first film, she made the whole you can only bring one toy rule, which made Woody all jealous. In Toy Story 2, she tries to sell Wheezy at a yard sale, leading to Woody trying to save him and getting kidnapped along the way. And in Toy Story 3, she threw the toys out on the curb, and from there they got brought to Sunnyside Daycare, where Lotso Bear tried to burn them all to death. None of this would have happened if Andy's mom just had kept the toys. She's at fault for all of this. She's the real villain. Moving on to number 7, we have the Twisted Theory. This theory connects a bunch of Disney movies together. These movies are Tangled, Frozen, The Little Mermaid, and Tarzan. Get ready for this one. It might blow your mind. So the theory starts suggesting that Elsa and Anna's parents died while on their way to Rapunzel's wedding with Eugene. In Frozen, we see Rapunzel and Eugene attending Elsa's coronation, so we know that they are family friends or something. But along the way, their parents got into a shipwreck. The theory continues on, claiming that the shipwreck that we see Ariel explore in The Little Mermaid is the one that took their parents' lives. Now, someone else added on to this theory, bringing Tarzan into the mix. So instead of their parents dying in a shipwreck, they believe the ship crashed upon an island. The island that we see in Tarzan. In fact, Elsa's mom was pregnant at the time and gave birth to Tarzan on the island, meaning Tarzan is the brother of Elsa and Anna. Sadly, as we know from the movie Tarzan, their parents died from a leopard attack. I know, it's a lot of things to take in, but it would be pretty cool if indeed these movies were related to each other. Moving on to number 6, we have Mother Gothel. There's this crazy theory out there that Meg from Hercules grew up to become Mother Gothel from Tangled. At first, I was not buying this theory at all, but wait until I present you with the evidence. Okay, so for starters, Rapunzel got her magical hair powers from a cosmic event that created a single drop of sunlight which fell from the heavens, and it grew this golden flower. Well, what if that single drop of sunlight occurred when Hercules first fell from Olympus? Now, take a look at Mother Gothel. First off, how does she know about this golden flower, and how does she know the exact song to sing to it? Well, maybe that's because Hercules told her about it, and told her the song to sing to it. Now, let's take a look at the song. The lyrics go as so. Flower gleam and glow, let your power shine. Make the clock reverse, bring back what once was mine. What if she is referring to Hercules and not her youth? In Hercules, Hercules gives up his immortality to be with Meg. So when Hercules died, she went on to outlive him. She probably misses him so much and feels guilty. So she's trying to bring him back. Not only that, in another song, Mother Gothel told Rapunzel to be aware of men with pointy teeth. Well, guess what? Hades, who kept her captive, has big pointy teeth. And lastly, one of Meg's famous lines was, "Ya big lug." What other character has said such a thing? Mother Gothel. Mind blown. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the original owner. For this one, let's bring it back to Toy Story again. And let's take a look at Andy's evil mom. This theory suggests that Andy's mom was Jesse's original owner, Emily. And from Jesse's super sad flashback scene, we can see just how much Emily hurt her. Now first off, both Andy's mom and Emily look similar in appearance. Then we have the fact that when Andy was a kid, he used to play with Woody while wearing a red cowboy hat. The cowboy hat looks exactly like the one Jesse wears. Andy's hat is just missing the white ribbon, but with age, it probably just fell off, because you can see the spot where it looks like a ribbon used to be. It could be that Andy's mom, aka Emily, used to wear that hat as well when she was young, and she saved it for her son. In fact, when she donated Jesse, you can see the red hat wasn't in the donation box, meaning she did save the hat. On top of that, the dates line up perfectly. Andy was born in 1989, meaning that his mother was probably born somewhere between the late 1950s to early 1960s. Now take a look at things in Emily's room. Her room decorations line up with that time period perfectly. So it may just be that Emily is Andy's mom, the woman that severely broke Jesse's heart. Moving on to number 4, we have the psych ward. Let's move on to look at Alice in Wonderland again. That film is filled with quirky characters with loud personalities. Well, this theory is that everything we see in the film is all inside of Alice's mind. Alice is actually a patient in a mental asylum. She's given a variety of antipsychotic drugs, and while on these drugs, that's when she hallucinates about the characters. For example, the White Rabbit is her anxiety disorder. The Mad Hatter is a reflection of her ADHD, and the Queen of Hearts is a reflection of her narcissistic personality disorder. So Alice in Wonderland is actually just one big hallucination. Coming in at number 3, we have Cruella de Vil. Turns out that Cruella de Vil is the way that she is because she might indeed be related to a serial killer. Honestly, this has to be my favorite theory out there. So at this one, we have to look at the 100 Dalmatians book written by Dottie Smith. In the book, the original de Vil Manor was once owned by a man that many villagers were terrified of. They used to hear screaming coming from his home late at night, and then they would, and I quote, began to count their children. Literally, he was a murderer. So now that might go on to explain Cruella's weird impulses to harm animals. It's because she's a direct descendant from a serial killer. Coming in at number 2, we have the devil. Okay, this is a different theory about Cruella de Vil. Or should I say, Cruella Devil. This one suggests that she is a direct descendant of the devil. In the original novel, villagers also claimed that Cruella's ancestor had a tail and supernatural powers. At one point, the man was seen with blue forked lightning coming from his body. So maybe he was the devil himself, meaning Cruella is related to the devil. Again, this explains why she's so dark and twisted. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Brother Eater. Now, you may have heard of this next theory because it went viral on TikTok. But basically, it involves Scar and Mufasa from The Lion King. In the movie, an envious Scar kills Mufasa in order to steal the throne. Now, I don't think any of us ever thought about what happened to Mufasa's body. Like, I just thought he was left there to decay or the hyenas got him or something. Well, it may just be that Scar ate his own brother. Yeah, I know, I'm horrified too. So according to the TikTok theory, lions sometimes eat other lions as an act of dominance. And we all know that Scar always wanted to be the dominant and more powerful one. Flash forward, in the scene where Zazu is singing to him, we can see Scar playing with an animal skull. Well, upon Googling what a lion's skull looks like, it looks exactly like the skull Scar's playing with. That could literally be Mufasa's skull. So, in conclusion, Scar is a sicko who ate his brother and kept his skull as a souvenir. Alright.